Again, it's your boy Kormega, and I wanted to show you a game I recently played against the 2800 on Chess or Chess, however you want to pronounce it. You can see the ratings here. He's 2,800. I'm still wallowing in 2,300, somewhere there. But it was a bullet game, and I just want to do a huge disclaimer before we start. Bullet games are not that deep. They are error prone. They do not give a true reflection in most cases of a person's, strengths. Because unless, well, you get to a certain level where your bullet strength is on par with, with the other time controls like your blitz or your rapid games. However, I was very proud of this win, and I thought there was a story in the game as well, and I wanted to share that with you. So we're going to start from the beginning. I was playing white, and my opponent was black. So we started off with e4, e6, the French. By the way, I hate playing against the French. It's one of the openings as black that I absolutely detest. Anyways, it continues standard moves, closed French, and I play the bishop e3 variation. I like this because it's solid for me. I can develop my knights, bring my queen up, and castle quickly. I love it. I love it. So we continue with the opening, and then he immediately attacks my center. I like to maintain a solid structure in the center of the board here with these two pawns. However, he immediately attacks it with f6. Now, it's a very effective thing to do, but it also creates weakness on the king side, you know. But you'll get to see this later in the game. The game continues with pawn times pawn, pawn times pawn. Already, he's given up on, you know, having a solid structure on his king side. And we continue. Bishop d3, knight times e3, pawn times knight, and immediately attacks the pawn on e3. So I defend with queen e2. He castles, I castle, queen out, attacking this pawn. Although the pawn is protected by my queen, um, he applies pressure by bringing his queen out to b6. And impulsively, I play b3. Now, in a standard game, b3 would be questionable. As you can see, the engine puts a question mark on that move. But this is bullet, like I said. So, it isn't exactly the best moves that come out when you're under time pressure. So continues with knight e7. The engine doesn't like that, calls it a dubious move. And I continue attacking his queen with my knight. He moves to a5. I bring my rook out because there's an open file here. Obeying one of the principles of chess, whenever you see an open file, you occupy it with your rooks. Continues b5, knight c5, and then he hides his king because obviously you can see that there's a storm coming. I continue with e4, which is essentially a blunder because it leaves my rook vulnerable to his bishop on h6. The engine doesn't like that move, puts a question mark to it anyway. But I was lucky, like I said, this is bullet chess. And, even 2,800 players make errors sometimes. So he didn't see that immediately. He takes my pawn, which is the worst move he could make. This is a double question mark. It's an absolute blunder. And I capitalize on that, threatening mate with the battery on his h7 and also attacking the rook on a8. He defends the mate with his knight, and I take the free rook. He now takes my rook on c1 eventually, which I should have done in the beginning. And I take back with rook. At this point, he's essentially lost. He's got, just three pieces and his queen, while I've got four. Now, he's got 36 seconds on the clock, while I've got 32. And there is something that typically happens with players that are really strong, like my opponent here, is that once they are down in other respects, say, for example, the position on board or material, then they resort to veteran tricks. I like to call them veteran tricks because they overwhelm you with speed, with pressure. And that's when you should steel yourself and focus, because it's very easy to lose, even if you're better on the board. So game continues. He plays e5. I take the knight on g6, weakening his the protection on his rook, because I expect that at some point he might lift that bishop and my queen will become vulnerable. He takes back. I bring my queen back quickly. He brings bishop f5. I take e5. Queen times. He's already coming in with his queen, and I begin to feel nervous. He's still got more time than me. He's got 30 seconds on the clock to my 24. Game continues. I take on f6. Rook times. Queen times. King moves up. And then I come closer with my queen with a check. He blocks with his rook, and I check again on e5. He moves his king down. And then I make a blunder. Knight g5, which is wrong because of the move queen d2. Queen d2 attacks both knight and rook, and I'd have to give up one of them. So even if I protected my rook by playing this, he'd be able to take that, and that would lessen the material advantage that I have. However, he did not see that. What did he play? So after I played knight g5, he played bishop e4, which is a bullet trick. If I ignored it for whatever reason, because obviously I had my eyes on that on that rook. Say for example, I took this, there'd be a mate here immediately. It's not sound. I'm not saying what he did is clever or brilliant or anything like that. It's a trick. It's a bullet trick. And when you're playing at rapid speeds like that, sometimes you miss obvious moves. But I was lucky because I was focused and I was aware of my surroundings. Took that bishop because it's free. He takes my pawn on b3. I check again. He blocks. And at this point, it's mate in one. So that was how I won the game. There's no great, profound lesson behind this video. And the story is just, sometimes even very strong players make mistakes. When you do manage to capitalize on these mistakes, make sure you keep your focus until you get the win. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you on the next turn. Keep playing chess.